We've got three ladies who are going to share their testimony this morning, and we're going to start off with Leandra, followed by Erica and Destiny. So thank you. I'd invite Leandra to come forward.
Good morning, Brighton Church. Happy Sabbath, happy holidays, and everything that goes along with all of that. So, this morning it was quite interesting, as I didn't know what the little ones had planned, and they started off with telling a story, and they were telling Jesus' story. Sorry, and that's a prayer that I always pray, is not to cry, but for some reason the dear Lord just does not answer that one. So please bear with me. All right, so when Caden asked me to give a bit of a testimony last Sabbath, he probably didn't realize that he was asking a teacher who is on holiday and still must get her daily word count in to talk for at least 10 minutes, which I might exceed, so please excuse me for that, so apologies in advance. So just a little bit about me, my teaching path that I walked in life, so there's some photos for you to have a look at. So when I was younger, much younger, and I listened to people give their testimonies, I used to think that testimonies had to be something big, something radical that happened in one's life, like experiencing a huge miracle or something. Later in life, I thought to give a testimony had to be all about to talk about a turning point in my life. So, in example, having a near-death experience and turning my life around, or have had some great major conviction, like being addicted to substance abuse and how God worked and took it away. But I had none of that. So I thought, I had no great story to tell. Although all through my life, I must admit, I never felt content either. I never felt content with being a teacher. A matter of fact, I felt shy and embarrassed having to tell people what my profession was. Funny enough, no matter what I did, for some reason, I always ended up in education. Yeah, go figure. Being a teacher wasn't all bad. There was some job satisfaction when this boy, the one that the arrow is pointing to, when I helped him with his physics in year 10, going from 25% at the beginning of the year, ending with a 75% at the end of the year. In his year 12, he received his honors award for physics and chemistry. This was just one of the highlights of what I got to experience as a teacher. A small testimony within a testimony. I taught this boy Shelton at an all-boys school. How I got the teaching position was a miracle. Julian and I was driving through the night, going on holiday, when my mom phoned and said there's a vacancy at this school and if I would like her to send my resume. So I said, yeah, sure, and she sent the resume on my behalf. The Monday, I phoned them to see if they received it, and they told me that they weren't even aware that they had a position, but they appointed me anyway. And so my teaching career started. After teaching at all-boys school for almost 7 years, we relocated to Cape Town, which is a total different province. Settling in Cape Town, the following happened. We bought a house, not with the people, they just came. We had a second child. We opened a business, that one, called Tutor House. I became a partner in a second company called Split Second Science. Don't have a picture of that. And Julian had a very good job, hence the relocation. Playing with fire is apparently his thing. And in 2019, we were privileged enough to celebrate our 10-year anniversary with a boat cruise from Amsterdam all the way to Rome. So just a little update here. This is where my actual story starts. Upon returning from our boat cruise in August 2019, my grandmother had passed away at the end of August. After the funeral, my cousin and I had some time to catch up, and she shared with me that they were on their way to Australia, and they will be coming here to teach at an Adventist school. And they will be flying out on the 25th of December 2019. I said, without really thinking it through, that once they're in Australia and a science position comes up or opens up, she should let me know. And she said, sure she will, and we left it at that. Once we got home after the funeral, I prayed the one day during my quiet time that if we need to immigrate, and it needs to be on my credentials as a teacher, that it must be for a position at an Adventist school, as I will not work in any other school and move for any other school. And so the days went by, and I totally forgot about my prayer. Then 2020 started with a bang. I earned a double salary as I got paid by Split Second Science, and we were contracted out as well to do relief teaching at a school, so we got that too. And then I survived a cycle race of 109 kilometers that Julian, my husband, entered me in, which I didn't really have time to practice for. So this was the photos. I never bought one, but so that's why the red wording is on that, but just proof that I did do it and I did finish it. I don't know what his aim was with that. I don't know if he wanted to end me or something. It was really far. And then at the same time, Tutor House also did really well in student numbers and also financially. Then end of February, start March 2020, my cousin sent me a message that there's a science position available if I wanted to apply. Not sure if I was happy to leave my comfort zone, but we decided that I will send my resume anyway. An email from the principal came back saying that they have filled the position internally already, but he CC'd the director of Adventist education in the email. And if something comes up, he will let me know. I didn't think much of this because where I come from, if the position is filled, the resumes goes to the bin. So at the same time, our previous pastor who relocated to America also asked me if he could send his resume to one of their church schools over there and if we would be willing to relocate. We said, sure. Why not? But then COVID happened. Miraculously, God sustained us in this time as many companies had to close, but both our companies had survived. August 2020, I received an email from the director saying a position has opened, and if I'm still interested, I can reply to this email and we will set up a conference call. Long story short, they were happy with me and vice versa, and we started the process of climbing the mountain of paperwork. From here, as I prayed, I could see God's hand working, leading, answering prayers in His time though, and also testing our faith and patience. Step 1, the position had to be advertised for 28 days first. There were apparently no successful candidates. The process could continue. At this point, I became a little bit suspicious and skeptical, as I couldn't believe that they couldn't find another me in Australia. So I asked my cousin if there's something wrong on this side of the world that they can't find teachers and they need to import them. She gave a relatively good answer, hence we continued. Step 2. As we were both in the South African National Defence Force, myself and my husband, we had to get the clearance certificates, which became a slight longer process when they kept on getting your gender wrong on the certificate. So his one came back fine, but I apparently stayed a he for a while. Step 3, I had to write my English test and had to do the IELTS, but because of the backlog of COVID, nowhere in South Africa you could get a place to go and write at. So the next best test that I could write was the TEFL. I could only get an appointment on the 11th of December 2020, but in a total different province. Luckily, that is where my parents stayed. So they said, no worries, they will drive me to the venue and make sure I get it done and so on. On the way to the venue to write the test, the car broke down because my mother had an accident a couple of months back and they never fixed it properly. So I had to be at this appointment at 10 a.m. And 3 kilometers before this venue, the car just said, we're not going anywhere. So we had to free all the way down. Luckily, it was a downhill, and we made it closer to the venue. I rushed in just before 10 a.m., literally actually on the dot, I think. I barely had time to sit down as they ushered me into the examination room. Nothing was allowed to go in with you, so I couldn't even take water or anything. And just my luck, the first section I had to start with was the speaking section. So my tongue was stuck to my palate, and I thought, this is going to be the worst thing ever. And I just bared through it. It was probably about 4 hours I was there, and afterwards I felt like really, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me at that point. And then I just thought, no, I'll pray about it, because if the Lord wants us to go, He will make the way. And I passed that part, and that was actually the section I did the best in. So, yeah. As the last of our paperwork got submitted, the Australian borders closed. Just. I received an email that said the conference will honor their agreement and will put a contingency plan in place until we can come over when the borders reopen. We decided to go forth in faith and put our house in the market over December, and asking for a specific amount that we wanted for it. The agent told us that houses don't sell well over December and January, and that our asking price was too high. Clearly, he did not meet Julian's wife yet. I was determined and refused to drop the price, because that is what we wanted. We prayed, and I told God, we will not sell for less. We need this money. We're giving everything up. We need something so we can start all over with. And over this period, we had 5 couples to come and view the house. End of January 2021, the 5th couple bought our house, and for the price we wanted. And the agent said he couldn't believe it. It doesn't happen that way. We sold everything in a matter of days. Once we decided to sell everything, except the husband's sporting gear, which is not all in that picture. It's the bicycles, the kayaks, and so on. So I couldn't find a picture quick enough to show all of that. So the husband's sporting gear, my books, and our clothes. 1st of April 2021, we moved out and into an Airbnb right across the beach with the most amazing view of Cape Town. And showing off the pride and joy, Table Mountain, over there. We had some nice sunset pictures as well, showing the mountain and so on, which I also couldn't find in time. And the owners of this Airbnb took the place off of Airbnb and rented it to us for even cheaper than what we paid when it was on Airbnb. We prayed that the borders would please just open already. We prayed that things will just start falling into place and that this living in limbo will just come to an end. But all in God's time. As I look back, it became very clear that God gave us time as we had many things that actually still needed our attention, and that we didn't really, at that time, as we were so focused on moving and being in the moment of things, I believe things were delayed because God knows best. We don't or can't or don't always want to see past that moment. I also feel that I had to start at Prescott Southern at the time that was right for God, and maybe for when they really needed me, and not for when they wanted me to start. And poor David had to suffer through that. End of November 2021, the agent let us know that our police clearance expired, and we had to redo it. So no one works over December, and we only got an appointment on the 9th of January 2022 to redo all of that. This normally takes about 6 weeks, but because of COVID, it ended up taking about 8 weeks. Just as we were about to receive our clearance back, the officers closed down because they failed to pay their rent for a prolonged period of time. Now, how do you explain that to a country where everything works? On top of that, we had to then also redo our medicals, as that had expired too. Easter weekend, family and friends came together to say the big goodbyes, and the 3rd of May 2022, with a great sigh of relief, we boarded our plane to start our long-awaited journey to Adelaide. So up there is just some of our friends and family. Won't introduce you to all of them now. We were so blessed on arrival. We could use the conference car for a month. We secured a rental house within 3 weeks of arrival in Australia, which was the 3rd house we went to look at. With my teacher registration, I applied for the English exemption, as I only had the TOEFL test and not the IELTS as required, and the exemption was granted with the help of some amazing letters from colleagues. When moving into the house, we were blessed with furniture, bedding, and so much more. So much so that the only things we needed to buy was beds and mattresses. When I look back on the years from 2019 to 2022, I can truly see God's hand in it, leading, protecting, guiding, and answering prayers, all in His time. We all complain about things we need to go through or what we went through at some point in time. And yes, there were times when I thought, is this move to Australia really ever still going to happen? But now in hindsight, when I look back on what we had to make and go through, and what others went through that followed the same kind of process as we did, then it feels like we had it easier in some ways, maybe. Like my mom used to say, if everyone had to place their problems on a pile and then go and choose a problem you think you might be able to deal with, everyone will just go and take up their own problems again. For me, in the end, it just felt like things fell into place at the right time, and small miracles and answers to prayers just happened. In a sense, this whole process actually felt like a pregnancy test. Every time you get a negative result, you feel disappointed or sad. But boy, oh boy, when you get the 2 stripes and it shows the positive result, you still feel shocked and overwhelmed, even though you hoped and prayed for a positive result. It's done now. You're either pregnant or you're not. And once pregnant, there's no turning back. So hence this process happened. This brings me to my very most favorite Bible verse, which I memorized during a camp meeting in 1998. Jeremiah 29, verse 11 to 13. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will seek me, and you shall find me when you search for me with all your heart. So to come back to what I started with, I never really wanted to be a teacher, even though I have a passion for it. And I must admit, I actually do like it, most of the time. It took me ages to become content and make peace with the fact that this is what God keeps on calling me to be and to do. And if I had never become a teacher, we may never have ended up where we are today. Many times I had moments where I became a bit anxious or doubtful or thought that God has forgotten all about us or not hearing our prayers. But then God calmed me with the words from Isaiah 41, looking at the end of verse 9 to 10. You are my servant. I have chosen you and have not cast you away. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Wow, what a promise. To end off, I want to also refer back to how I felt about what testimonies should be like or be about. Pastors preach that you must pray, read your Bible, and testify. Well, I agree with all three, but my version of the last one is to word it differently and say, just tell your story. No matter how big or how small, by sharing what you think is a little thing in how God works. By sharing what you think is a little thing in how God worked in your life, might be a big thing in someone else's life, and it might be just that little thing they needed to hear. God is in the big things, and He is in the small things. So no matter how big or small you may think your story is, or how exciting or boring it may seem, don't worry if people will like it or not, or what people may think. Even if it just touches one person's heart, by showing how God works in your life, that's fine. I was not so much impressed with which story to tell you today, or what testimony to give. But the message God impressed on my heart was a strong feeling that He wanted me to share with you, that you should be encouraged to tell your stories. And even ourselves, because it is there to encourage others, and even ourselves, with how God is present in our lives, and how He works in our lives, and to show that He is real. So, never be afraid to tell your story.
Thank you, Leandra. Yes, it's the little things that we forget to thank God for. I'd invite Erica to come forward now. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. When Caden asked me to do this, I thought, what can I say about this year that makes it different from other years where God has been in my life and things that I've asked of Him? So I was thinking about this for quite a while, and the first thing that came to my mind was my dad, because my dad was diagnosed with a really bad kidney problem probably 18 months ago or so. So this time last year, we didn't even know if he'd still be here now. And as a family, it's brought us really close together, and we've spent a lot of time praying and a lot of time talking about how much we love Dad and reminiscing about things that we've done in the past. And something that's always struck me about my parents is that they're very kind and welcoming people. And like Mum and Dad would invite people home for lunch after church, and they help people out. They've helped out friends with their kids with school fees and things like that over the years. And they've been a really good example to me of demonstrating Christian love to everyone that they're sort of friends with and know about. And so, Mum sent me a text, I think it was last week, where Dad had been to the specialist, and he said that it looks like his kidney function has really improved dramatically. And he said that Dad's got years ahead of him now. So we're just I'm really thankful to God for giving my dad a few more years of life. He knows how loved he is, but we get to spend that extra time with him now, and it will be time that won't be taken for granted. It'll be time that we appreciate and are so thankful for God's gift to us in my father. Also, my auntie that I'm really close to, she had a really big health scare only within the last sort of 6 weeks or so. Twice we nearly lost her in a fortnight. And she's like a second mum to me. I love my aunt. And when I was a baby, she drove me home from hospital from when I was born. And she's been a constant friend to me, and someone that I can confide in and love, and who also shares with me. And to know that God has really had two people that I love so much in my family in his hands. It's very special to me. I'm very grateful to him. And it's a bit emotional, because when you love people like that you've known your whole life, you can't really put a price on those relationships. They're so special. I'm thankful to Russell and to Alec as well. I thank God for them every day, that I have a loving family and that I live in a home that I know I'm loved and cared for and appreciated. My testimony isn't anything fancy or it's nothing that is outstanding or unusual, but what God impressed me is just to be grateful for the small things, because they mean a lot. They're really important. So I'm also really thankful to the school this year. Like Alex had a teacher for I think the last couple of years that he's quite close to, and he's really gone out of his way this year for Alec. And I can see that they have quite a strong sort of bond between them. So I'm really glad for that, for him. And I pray that that the Lord will be with our schools next year and with our children over the holidays as they have their time to relax and have a break. And that next year that there will be the presence of the Holy Spirit in our schools, leading especially the children that don't come from Christian families, that they can be a witness in their homes to their families and teach their families about Jesus and how good he is and how much he loves them. Another area that I feel really blessed in is my work. It's cleaning, it's not anything flash or anything like that. But I've been there 10 years this year doing that in people's homes, and I I've got to know, like, a lot of these people I haven't had the whole 10 years, but some of them I have. And even the new people that I've gone to this year, I've got close to them really quickly, and I'm just so, I feel so happy to go to work every day because I know that I'm going to get a warm reception, and I enjoy listening to the life stories that my clients tell me of things that they've done. A lot of them have immigrated here, so I enjoy hearing about their early lives, where they grew up, what they used to do, and I really feel that God has led me to these people somehow, because they're all different. No two are the same. All personalities are all different, but I feel close to each one of them, and I feel like it's a real privilege to be able to go into somebody's house and do something for them to help them so that they can remain independent. And also sometimes I'm the only one that person will see for the whole day. So I kind of feel a responsibility to go there and smile and be happy and see if I can just be a bright light in their day, even if it's just for a couple of hours. Sometimes I spend more than that because we get talking, and often I have lunch or drink, and we just enjoy each other's company for a little while. And I think God's blessed me in that job more than I ever expected that he would. I started that job. When I started, I was going through a really hard time in life, and God just sort of opened my eyes to see other people suffer and how other people can overcome it and how things can improve, and it helped me. It really helped me a lot. I'm very, very grateful to have this job. And in that job, which involves driving a lot, I've had a few close calls the last sort of couple of years where there were a couple of boys that just ran in front of me across the road, and I don't know how I didn't hit them. I just prayed, please God help me, because I think, when teenage boys play chicken, they think that they're invincible, but I don't even know what happened, but my car ended up in the next lane, sort of parallel parked, and I don't remember how I did it. I know that God helped me there. And another time as well, when I was driving and it was raining, someone just turned in front of me, and I don't even recall how I avoided not hitting them, and it would have hit me right on my side. And I was just shaking after that, but very grateful to still be here. I'm also grateful for my pets. I've got heaps of birds, a couple of cats, and Russell says that we can't get a dog. I'd like a dog. Anyway, it's really nice to be able to go sit outside and enjoy them. I like those birds. They've got personalities, and I just appreciate God's creation. I love all times of the day. Those budgies, they seem to have their own social pecking order. And at night time, they talk to each other when they go to sleep, and I just enjoy it. It makes me feel calm and appreciative of what God has given us to enjoy in nature. The colours of their feathers are beautiful, and the little sounds they make, and they lay eggs, and watching the whole life cycle. It's really amazing, and I mean, what a gift that we have for free, that we can see God's creation in our lives every day if we allow him to show us. So I'm thankful for them. And I'm also thankful coming to a more spiritual level here at church. The prayer group this year has been really amazing, and I think as a group we've grown together, grown close, and we always welcome people to come and join us, because it is it's a really good experience to be able to pray for other people. What a privilege when people bring us a prayer request, and we've seen prayers answered. Some of them are answered really quickly. Some prayers, God's still, He is still working on those prayers, and He's still involved in answering them. They're not completely answered yet. And we all have faith, and my faith has really strengthened in the way in which I've seen Him work in this church, in the way that He's answered prayers. And I'm very, very grateful to have those meetings, even in the middle of winter when it's freezing. We've got a warm library that we can meet in and be together and sing a song. We can spend some time reading the Bible and discussing what we've read, bringing our ideas together. And I believe that God is with us in those meetings, and He helps us to learn more about Him each week. And lastly, I wrote down that I'm very thankful for you guys, for my church family. And, this is the only church that I've come to since I left my family church in 1990 in New Zealand. This is the only church I've come to where I've not felt lonely. I feel very blessed to come here. Everyone here is a very special group of people. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of this church family. And my prayer for you all is that next year, that the Lord will continue to bless us. We have a pastor who cares about us and who cares about our community and invests his time into running programs to invite, members of our community are invited to. And I pray that the Holy Spirit will work in this community next year and that we'll see more people come and join us. I'm thankful for the old friends that I have here, and I praise God for the new friends that I've made this year. And I love getting to know different people and seeing how God has moved in their lives and what He's done for them. It's really interesting, and it's really exciting to see God's love manifested in different ways in each person. So thank you very much for being a wonderful church family, and I wish you all a very safe holiday season and a very blessed year next year.
You up to it? Next one we'll have Destiny. And following Destiny, Elvis is going to do a special item, so I'm just giving him a heads up.
Yeah. Happy Sabbath, everyone. I've shared my testimony here before, and last Sabbath, Kaden asked me to share another testimony. Though I've got heaps of experiences that I need to share because I've not shared some of them before. I was just saying that I've been here to share testimonies, but I got confused on what to share because I've got lots of experiences in the past. Mine might not be the experience of this year because, God has been really faithful to me since this year. It's been up and down. It's been lots of struggle and trying to catch up with everything. But indeed, I'll say God is faithful. He's been helping. But I want to share a story, an experience I had with God in 2019, March, after my service here in the northern part of Nigeria, which my parents didn't want me to serve there because it's a crisis-prone area with the Boko Haram crisis. I just like to visit weird areas where people do not like to go. That's where I like to go. So people think I'm foolish, but I just like to go there I don't know why, but I'm just moved to. So I insisted on going to Kano State, which is located in the northern part of Nigeria, to do my service, and I served in a Muslim-dominated environment. I would say I was just the only Christian I met. I didn't meet any other Christian. There may be Christians there, but I was just the only one. My dressing has to change. I had to wear an hijab to look like the Muslim, because when I dress in my normal outfit, they throw me water and stones, and they felt I was defiling their environment. So I had to dress like them sometimes to even buy things. And God protected me there, and I prayed that God should help me impact lives. So as time went on, I taught in a school, because that was where my primary place of assignment. The children there didn't understand English, because that's the only way I could communicate, but they didn't even understand English. They spoke most in their local dialect. I started teaching them, and I managed to teach some of them who understood a little bit. They explained to the others. And my impact there was felt because they improved in the academics, and I also, from my personal earning, I bought things to impress them, so they were forced to study. And most of them made excellent grade, and even the school owner was really impressed that I gave them gifts. Then when my service here was over, I decided to visit Adamawa State, which was the area where the crisis is core. Like, that area was defeated by Boko Haram. So at that point, I wanted to visit my uncle there. My parents were so angry. They refused to give me money, they refused to give me tips, and they said, if you ever go there. And I was a bit afraid. I didn't want to lose the relationship with my father, especially because he was so mad at me at that time. But I had this burden in my heart to go there. So one day I was struggling, and that time I was running out of cash as I wasn't paid again from the government. Then on my birthday, early in the morning, I just packed my bag and said, I'm going there. Whatever happens, I'm going. Then I packed my bag in the morning and I left. I went to Adamawa State, and the journey took me 15 hours by road. Then I went to see my uncle. And my father was so angry. When I got there, the first thing I asked is, where is the church? I want to visit our church. And my uncle said, I learned your church was burnt down by Boko Haram. I don't know if people are still worshiping there, but then I'll ask somebody I know that used to attend the church before. So within the week, he met the man, and the man said, yeah, but we are just a few family worshiping there now, but yeah, we can take her to the church on Saturday. So I was glad I had met a church family. And on Saturday, they came with the tricycle, and they picked me up, and we went to church. So when we got to the church, oh my God, I met just two families. And the problem was that they didn't understand English again. And the only one who understood a little bit was just two of them. One of the elders who used to study in the British time, so he understood a little bit, and the other one was just very basic. So I was so discouraged, and these people were like these old people that married how many wives. So this man had married probably his last wife, and his kids were really small. I was the only young person, like a young person in the teens age at that time. So I didn't even have anybody to talk to. It's either old people or very young people. None of my mates were there. I was discouraged. So I went to church that Saturday, and I was battling in my spirit. Do I continue to go to this church? Then the next church was like, how many kilometers? Not about 40 kilometers. You have to drive for like 2 or 3 hours to the place, and I don't have my own car, and there is no way I could go there to worship as well. So the option I had was to either worship in that church or go to a Sunday church with my uncle. So my uncle also persuaded me to go to church with them on Saturday since I lived in their house. So I told him, okay, I can go to your church, but I must go to church on Saturdays. And he agreed. So on Saturday, I went to my church the first time, and on Sunday, I went to my uncle's church. My uncle's church was so lively. They were young people. They danced. The pastors preached so well, and, I was impressed. So my spirit just told me, why don't you just continue with this church? And your church, you already know what you believe. You can always go back to your church whenever, but then go to your uncle's church. I was battling in my spirit. The next Sabbath, I also managed to go to the church, but somehow a still small voice spoke to me and said, why don't you just make an impact in this church? Yeah, they may be small, but you can do something. It was a battle for me. Then I told God, if I have to go to this church, you need to give me the grace, because these people don't even understand what I'm saying. And it's hard. And I don't also understand them because they didn't speak the English in a way that I could understand very well. And I was struggling to also learn the language, and it was hard for me. So by God's grace, I told myself, I'm going to stick to Seventh Adventist, whatever it is. So I often go to church on Saturday, and I also went on Sunday with my uncle every Sunday. So when I started our church, I decided to take over the Sabbath school. Then I started coaching the kids. I told them what to say. I started chipping in some programs to make the church a bit lively. So they started telling other people that there is this new girl that came. The church is now livelier. People started coming to church after some time, And when I was there, my uncle had a little business he ran. I was helping him out. But because I wasn't earning, I was running out of cash, I wanted to go back to my parents because they stopped sending me money, and that was the only way they could bring me back when they know that I no longer have anything to take care of myself. Then I was now having a second thought of going back home. I told myself after a month, if I can't get any job here because of language barrier, then I have to go back to my parents. Then within that 1 month, an elder came from Zimbabwe. His name is the Takada. So he came as one of the foreign NGOs. He was a manager to one of them. So the first time he came, he also asked of the church. He said he spent about 3 weeks without locating the church. So one Sabbath he was able to come. Then he met me there. So it was also a struggle for him, but because I was there and I also spoke in English, he was a bit more comfortable. And he said, I like what you are doing with the kids here. We will work together and help the church. So we started working together. And he gave me a job in his company. And I was able to at least sustain myself. And we started working together. And before you knew it, the church grew. The church grew so well. And I was so impressed about what God has used me to do, So at some point, we started advocating that we needed an evangelism in that place to an open air to let people know about Seventh Adventist Church. And the district head agreed, and they held an evangelism in another town. And after the evangelism, we got about 15 souls, and there was a church established there, and we also had ours. So the church kept running. It was there I was. My dad called me. I bought you a form, and I filled it. You need to come back and write an exam to travel. And I was like, I don't want to travel because before now, we tried processing the US and it didn't work for me. And I was so sad and heartbroken. And I said, I'm not going to travel again. I want to be here. So my dad was angry and said, I've already spent money and you have to come back. Okay, come back. Let it be that you did not pass the exam. Then we'll know that you did not pass, but just come back and write the exam. So I had to manage, and I traveled home. When I was going, the church they felt so bad that I was leaving because I didn't know if I was coming back or not. Then I left some of my things, and I told them, my things are here, I'm going to come back. I believe I'll come back. I'll just write the exam and be back. So when I got back home, I wrote this exam, and God's grace, I passed the exam, and we started processing the school that brought us here. Like the state helped us, so we started processing the admission, and I got the admission. I passed the exam. Then, when we were processing our visa, after the process of the visa, the COVID came, and we couldn't even travel anymore. It was a struggle. And also, when we were supposed to pay our fees, I didn't have my own fees because my parents could not afford the amounts, the tuition. So it was hard. And, I already told my father that I don't want to get another heartbreak because of traveling abroad. So I don't want to go. And when we were not going to afford the fees, I started blaming my father. And I told him that I didn't want to do this. And now I was a contract staff there. And after I've spent so much time, I don't think they will renew my contract anymore. And right now, this thing is not working. And my dad had tried everywhere. He wanted to get a loan. He couldn't get a loan. And I couldn't come. So one day I knelt down and I prayed. And I told God, I had saved you. Even when my parents were saying you were in a very small church, nobody understood you, and you are still there. And even my friends made mockery of me. You should go to a big church because that's where you get connections to get job. And you're in a very tiny church. What are you doing there? I told them, God can locate you wherever you are. I don't care where I am. I want to be here. And, I often refuted whatever they said. And I told God, now is the time for you to come through for me because I've served you. And at this time, my church there, they prayed for me that my exam or whatever I'm going to work on will be successful. So where are those promises? I prayed and I cried. And my dad already consoled me that I'm not traveling anymore. He called me one morning and he told me, I've done my best and we can't try anymore. We can't do more than we can't give more than we have. So you can't go anymore. So that day, I cried so badly, and after weeping and praying, in 24 hours, the entire money came. Like, in 24 hours. My tuition came that day, and my fees were paid, and everything happened just in 24 hours. My parents were so shocked, and they were like, what happened? And I just told them simply, when God is working out ways for you, you don't need to figure out what's going on, but he will just do it. So I will just cut the story short because I'm going too long right now. So, but by God's grace, he made a way for me through just the little act of, will I say faithfulness? I'm not a righteous person. I'm terrible, trust me. But the little act of faithfulness, I saw God coming through for me because in my very difficult time, I pointed God back to the time when I was faithful to him. And he helped me, and I pulled through that moment. And today, till now, I still communicate with that church. And they still tell me, even here in Australia, I still call them. And they told me the church is still growing, and they are good. So I really thank God for what he just used me to do, and I pray he will use me more. Not because I'm good, but just because he can use anyone. Amen.